Hello everyone, my name is Artemis Schatzman. I am a video game development student here at St. Edward's University, award-winning game developer and currently working in educational games. And I am here to talk about secrecy in video game development. Now, what is secrecy? For the purposes of this presentation, I have sort of defined secrecy as a lack of communication or a breakdown in communication. Specifically amongst developers and audiences alike. Game development, this industry is often an industry that struggles with secrecy. There is a lack of communication between developers, their audiences, sometimes between developers and other developers, even on the same team. This lack of communication can cause many issues. And so, in this presentation, I'm going to cover what are the causes and effects of what causes this secrecy, and what are the effects that are created from it, and what can be done about it. Sorry. The first and most obvious one is the legal causes. Something that is huge is NDAs. NDAs are non-disclosure agreements. This is essentially a clause in a contract that prevents someone from sharing sensitive information that could be either creative or technical. You often see this a lot in film industries, video game industries, and just many different places where someone sharing information could cause a big problem. For example, in video games specifically, if someone were to share information before its time, it could ruin marketing campaigns. There is a big game event called the Game Awards. And according to a documentary series by Double Fine, by Double Fine Productions, they stated that if the person running the event, known as Jeff Keighley, if he finds out that your game has leaked before the reveal, he will pull it from the show. It will not be shown. That is just one example of what things can happen it ruining possible marketing campaigns through leaks and breaches of this legal secrecy. It can also lead to unrealistic expectations. Game development often changes scope, changes sizes, things get cut, you have to kill your darlings. One of the things that this means is that if someone were to keep sharing everything on the internet, audiences might be disappointed when their favorite level or something that they are excited for gets cut or gets added. And then obviously, an NDA prevents people from sharing legal information, creative details, technical details that their competitors might use, such as a new technology or sales data. But legal issues are not the sole cause of developers being tight-lipped. Another big thing is harassment, specifically online harassment. Nowadays with social media, anyone can say anything with a veil of semi-anonymity. And this can be seen most often in an online harassment campaign known as Gamergate. This started in 2014, lasted until about 2016, and it was focused on independent game developer Zoe Quinn, who had previously published a game called Depression Quest. Not a fun game, but a very eye-opening one. Their disgruntled ex-boyfriend posted on his blog a rumor that Zoe had slept with a games reviewer in order to get a favorable review. Notably, this review did not exist, but despite the unfoundness of it all, things ballooned out of scope. The harassment campaign originally targeted Zoe Quinn, but it quickly grew to encompass a lot of women in games and games journalism as a whole. People were, mostly straight white men, were disappointed and upset about women in games ruining games. This also would target queer, people of color, all sorts of video game creators, anyone who was not straight white men. And it would actually grow to such an extent that it would influence online political movements, especially with social media, in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election. This movement actually led to a lot of developers, especially minorities, a lot of minorities, game developers, being less active on the internet and kind of going behind a sort of veil of secrecy, of stopping posting as often. Finally, there can also be less extreme versions of harassment or backlash. For example, a game called High Guard was announced this December, and quickly thereafter, people who disliked it, not necessarily because of any personal reason, just because of dislike of the game as a whole, took to the internet and started criticizing it. Word of mouth spread, and when the game launched, it was had a very low player base, and after simply 2 months, the game was unsustainable and it was dropped. Roughly, according to my knowledge, roughly 100 developers got laid off, and while this was not a targeted harassment campaign with death threats and everything, it was still something that can lead to developers being disgruntled, not posting, feeling like their work doesn't matter, and cutting themselves off from the internet. Finally, there is also causes for secrecy that are endemic to the games industry itself. Every project in video game development is different. You are always doing something that has never been done before. So obviously this limits information that can be used from project to project. There are some building blocks that have been taken over, but there is always going to be parts that no matter how much experience you have, a developer is going to have to do new things. And this can limit the usefulness of information being shared. And the industry also has a lot of startup culture. A lot of game studios start small, and then slowly grow from there. Very like garage, in someone's basement developing kind of feeling, which can lead to sometimes arrogance and insular behavior among developers. This is not very common, but it is reported and does happen, and can lead to breakdowns in communication. Additionally, there are very few large international game companies, with a lot of them having subsidiaries instead, or a lot of companies being smaller. This can lead to larger information barrier between two subsidiaries versus if it was all part of one big company. Now, what does this mean? This can have multiple effects, especially amongst developers themselves, and especially in the breakdown of communication from upper management to the lower rung of working game developers. In 2018, games journalist Cecilia D'Anastasio, a writer for Kokotu, published an expose on Riot Games, the publisher of League of Legends. League of Legends is an online competitive game. I believe it has the most esports money in the world going towards it. It also has a culture of toxicity, which apparently, according to this expose, started to leak into the company itself. She interviewed multiple female employees and their experiences with harassment, sexism, and just being passed up for job promotions and things like that. She was unable to interview a significant amount of ex-employees due to non-disparagement and non-disclosure agreements that they had signed when leaving the company. This, in turn, led to, this article was published nonetheless, and it led to internal investigations and sexual harassment lawsuits. In response to this, Riot enacted something called forced arbitration, which removes the right for a judge or a jury lawsuit and instead puts it in company negotiations, in-house meetings, and other sorts of things. This was not popular amongst the employees at Riot, and this breakdown of communication led to 150 employees walking out, the largest walkout in video game industry history at the time, and I believe, if my information is correct, since. This is these sort of oh god, one second. My apologies. Higher-ups in game development being dishonest with their employees does not solely extend to sexual harassment. It can also be a cause of something called crunch. Crunch is a slang term used in the video game industry for extended periods of mandatory overtime, often unpaid or uncompensated, though not always. In a survey by the International Games Development Association, or IGDA, it was stated that only 11% of developers have not experienced crunch over the past 2 years, which means that 89% of game developers did. Despite the widespreadness, practice, and general acceptance of crunch happening in this industry, it is often not spoken about, and it is often not, when someone is hired at a company, they're often not told whether they will be expected to crunch and to what extent. It will often be downplayed. Thank you. So these are some of the causes, some of the effects. What can be done? The ideal solution is more developers communicating. And the good news is developers already communicate very well with each other. The games industry is very unstable. Projects will be canceled. Studios will fall apart. And sometimes when you finish a project, maybe you want to move on to a different studio. This can lead to a lot of developers meeting, mingling, and sharing information that they did not have before. Likewise, there are conferences, local organizations such as GDC, Game Developer Conference, or the Games Y'all in Austin are wonderful for developers meeting each other and sharing information and sharing how they're doing projects. And so game developers actually, there is the side that they do communicate very well with each other. And some companies communicate to the public very well. Double Fine, for example, is a game studio located in San Francisco, created by Tim Schafer, that has published documentary series on YouTube for free, showcasing how they went about and developed games. Other small game studios, the smaller game studios also, the more likely it is to be good at communicating, though not always. There's also a correlation between Kickstarter and other crowdfunding campaigns and communication from game developers to their audiences. Oftentimes, if a bunch of audience members raise money for a game, they want to know how it is going. And in fact, that is how the Double Fine, the company mentioned earlier, was able to started doing their documentary series. They kickstarted a campaign and wanted to see how, and wanted to keep in constant communication with their fans. So, to sum it up, the games industry does have a problem with communication, but it is also not as secretive as it seems. Game developers, it varies from company to company, from studio to studio, with more a focus of smaller game studios communicating better, and higher up studios being a lot more legally focused, or not legally, professionally and more corporate about it. Despite this, there are still lack of communication issues and secrecy issues that can cause breakdowns in communication and a lot of friction between developers and players, and developers and their companies. So on the surface, after analyzing all of this and trying to find a simple answer, I was forced to find that there isn't one. On the surface, this issue seems very simple, but diving deep, it is a lot more nuanced. Thank you very much.
You did it. You did it. You can relax. Thank you so much, Artemis. That was fascinating. I open it up to the crowd for questions.
Yes?
Were there any issues that you weren't able to cover in this presentation that you thought were interesting?
I really wanted to talk about, I suppose I did, but I wanted to mention the breakdown in communication from developers to their audiences. There is a independent studio, 3 people in Australia named T. Cherry, published the game Hollow Knight, and they were going to be working on a sequel called Silk Song. In December of 2019, they stated that we're working on it, we'll keep in touch. We're going on break for this Christmas, and New Year we'll keep talking. And then did not post anything for 6 years, up until 2025, 2 weeks before the game released. This led to a lot of audience mistrust. People did not know if the game was canceled, if it was ever going to come out. There was a lot of jokes on the internet. That is something I that's something I looked into and wanted to put in here, but in the sake of time, it's like that too. Yes?
How do you feel like the research phase for like studying the indie game development side went for you? Because I know like the posts and stuff that those like indie studios make are a lot smaller than like, let's say like a Ubisoft X.
Yes.
So how was finding that, and was it difficult?
Yes, it actually was. There are only so many huge, large game studios at Ubisoft, your EAs, your Activision, Blizzards, but there are millions of smaller game studios and independent developers. So there's a lot of variance in the small people communicating versus the big people communicating. So finding that was not just, it wasn't just finding examples of people communicating well or bad, it was finding the trends of how well these smaller studios communicated and how often was it compared to the people that weren't. And therefore it's very hard to get concrete numbers. But there are studies that show trends. Yeah.
I had a question for you. Is this research that you're doing, are you planning to go straight into the industry, or are you planning maybe more to go to grad school? But I'm curious if the industry values this kind of research that you're doing, this kind of looking at them, putting them under the microscope. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I want to go straight into the industry.
Okay.
And in fact, there's a reason I had I was originally going to do something about, I spoke a little bit on it in this presentation, but crunch, the practice of extended overtimes. Video game, it is kind of seen as an inevitability. It has to happen at some point. It is by a lot of people, and I felt like maybe this would have been a safer option instead of publishing almost like, let's say, an expose about,
That's kind of what I was wondering.
times.
How much does any industry, want you to be looking so critically at them? So that's interesting, yeah.
But given that the conclusion of this research, I really wanted to see, why does this happen? What are the effects? And is there a concrete solution?
Yeah.
And the more I looked into it, the more that there wasn't a concrete solution, the more that it was just normal communication issues. And I found as much examples of very good communication as I did bad communication. So I felt a little bit more comfortable sticking with this.
Good, you can still get a job, I love it. Well, let me invite Dr. Johnson up to Cord and Stoll Artemis and say a few words about working with them.
All right, so I've been working with Artemis now, not just on this, but for a long time. It's been a couple of years. I think I first met you when you came because you needed a faculty sponsor for your
Yes.
D&D club that is still going today and is going to continue on. You brought it to life. But yeah, you've always worked extremely hard. You have great insights. I have always enjoyed the games that you've come up with in class. I've made you come up with a lot, so I've seen a lot from you. And in fact, if you would like to see some of Artemis's work, Game Fair, you'll have at least 2 games. Do you have anything from a game jam or anything this year going to be in there?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so at least 2 games that you were on a team, one of which is, there's some other people in the audience that have participated in this game. But yeah, it's a really interesting Western where you go insane if you're not drunk enough. So, so you can see, you've seen Artemis's research work, but now come and see their weird take on the video game industry and what they do when they're released into the wild.
I love it. Thank you so much. Another hand.
Real quick, I would also like to thank a few people. I'd like to thank the folks I've worked this semester on. Colin, you're in the crowd. I'd like to thank Chris and Alec, 2 of the people that helped win that award those years ago. And I'd like to thank Derby, my girlfriend. Thank you. But yeah, and you, Jeremy. Thank you. So, you guys have been wonderful.
Thank you so much.